12th, 2020 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, you probably want, before I get going on this, you probably want to mute everyone. John.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place.
Oops. Sorry, I just muted you, Larry.
Oh, okay. Well, I just unmuted myself.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission is being conducted through remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public are permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so in a number of ways. They can tune to the BCAT Government Cable Access Channel. They could tune into the BCAT Government Meetings Facebook Live feed, or you can join the meeting over the phone at 408-418-9388. The meeting number is 173-001-4949. To join the WebEx live video conference, click on the link on the Conservation Commission's meeting page or on the Town of Burlington Town calendar, and there'll be a meeting access code and a password there. Our assistant administrator, Eileen Coleman, has put up the stuff on the screen now. She is sharing the screen with how to join the meeting, and she'll leave it up for another minute. New public hearings open tonight will not be closed so as to allow comments from those who are unable to access or are uncomfortable with the technology. Comments and concerns regarding our public meetings should be emailed to conservation@burlington.org before the next meeting, which occurs on December 10th, 2020. Okay. First thing I'll do is call the roll call. All decisions will be done by roll call of individual commission members. The first one is Don Bernstein. Say aye or yes if you're here.
Aye.
Gail Lima.
So Gail is here. She's having some technical difficulties, I know.
All right. Well, since we can see her, I think we can see her. I did see her earlier. Okay.
Yeah, she said she's gonna retry it.
All right. Indra Deb.
Yeah.
All right. Bill Boyven.
Here.
Jennifer O'Riordan.
Here.
Ed Loturco.
Here.
Associate Commissioner Kent Moffitt. Okay, he is absent. Our Conservation Administrator, John Keeley.
Here.
Our Assistant Conservation Administrator, Eileen Coleman.
Here.
All right. So let's looking at the agenda. To my knowledge, items 7, the Redmond Street roadway, item 8 for Redmond Street, and item 9, which is 5 Redmond Street, has been continued to the next meeting on December 10th of 2020. Okay, the meeting, I should note the meeting is being recorded. Okay, so we can get going. The first item is citizens' time. Oh, no, yes. Is there anyone here who has dialed in or is joining us by video conference? who would like to say a few words about something not on the agenda? Okay, the record should show no one volunteered for citizens' time. Item 3 on the agenda is, after calling the meeting to order, is approval of minutes, October 22nd, 2020. Are we in a position to approve those minutes?
Yes.
All right, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 22nd, 2020?
So moved. This is Bill.
Second?
Second, Ed.
Okay. On approving the minutes, there's a motion on the floor. Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail? I will skip Gail. She seems to be still be muted. Indra Deb?
Abstain.
All right. Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, the chair votes yes. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6-0. We'll put a Gail in for an abstention since she seems to be having still technical difficulties. 6-0-1.
No, I also abstain.
Oh, you abstained. 5-0-2. Thank you, Indra. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a request. Item 4 is a request for certificate of compliance and possible return of surety. 17 Terry Ave. This is for Boardwalk Storage Solutions LLC, DEP file number 122-515. Essentially on Terry Ave, this is the self-storage facility. Okay, John, do you have some comments? We did a site walk, or Eileen?
Yes, certainly. And I noticed there's several representatives from the applicant here as well. So the commission did a site walk on Tuesday. Everything looked in order. At the time, we hadn't had a chance to review the file and we're a little confused as to the drainage design and how it was supposed to function. I did go back and review the original filing, and I understand it. And it seems to be operating as designed. So I didn't really see any issues or problems with the site.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have a question or a comment on this one?
No comment.
Okay, all right, John, I had a question then. Could you, in a sentence or two, explain how the drainage was supposed to operate from starting with the asphalt and then it seems to sheet flow into that area right off the flow, and then there is some kind of a structure in the middle? Do you know how that works?
Sure, I can. And the applicant's engineer is here as well. So the water flows from the paved portion of the site into a vegetated strip and a forebay. And then the large area where that overflow is a gravel, basically infiltration area. And if the water were to rise high enough, it goes into that structure, which is in the middle. And that is connected to a large culvert, which takes the stormwater from the Terry Ave street drainage system and takes it to the wetland and the stream behind the storage facility. So it's designed to overflow into that municipal system. But by the looks of it, it doesn't, from the area around that overflow system, it doesn't look like the water really does that. It seems like it mostly infiltrates in there.
Okay, so you have no issue with how it seems to be working.
Correct.
All right, the applicant who's tuned in, is there anything further you might want to say at all? Just if you do, you can just introduce yourself and say something. Okay. All right, could I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 17 Terry Ave, DEP file number 122-515?
So moved, Bill.
Second?
Second, Jennifer.
All right, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
I'm abstaining because I had a problem with my device and I couldn't just now being able to connect to the audio.
All right, so are you voting on this, Gail?
No, I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Indra?
Yes. I said yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bill, did I call on you?
Yes, my vote is yes.
Okay, Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That's 6-0-1 carries. John or Eileen, are you recommending full release of the surety?
So there was a $10,000 paper bond issued for this project and it expired in 2018. So we're not really holding any surety at this point.
So they get no money back from us.
Correct.
All right. All right. So for the folks, if they're still here for 17 Terry Ave, I think you're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
All right. Have a good evening. Okay, so that's all right. So now we're on item 5A. Notice is given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a WebEx virtual public meeting on Thursday, November 12th. And it is to act upon a request for determination of applicability filed by Daniel Milano. The commission will be taking all information related to a cutting of several trees with new tree plantings and other landscaping activities that occurs within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. The property is located at 5 Fowler Terrace. The commission will consider the information and thereafter issue a determination. The application is being heard under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14. And a copy of the application is available by email at conservation@burlington.org. All right, is there someone here for the property at 5 Fowler Terrace?
Yes, this is Daniel Milano.
Good evening. Okay, since I guess it's clear that you obviously live at that residence, would you, the other guests, so you get to talk first and say anything you'd like to say?
Sure, thank you. As you've seen from my application, it pertains to removal of trees on the side and backyard of my home. We recently purchased this home, and during the inspection that was conducted, the presence of several large pines were flagged as a potential threat to the house. As a first-time home buyer and also have experienced the potential damage that fallen trees can have, I had reached out to several tree removal companies, all of whom, when visiting the property, noted the size, particularly the height, and mentioned the concern of pine trees in particular for having shallow roots. They also pointed out several large branches that had fallen and scattered in the backyard. So to protect the home as well as my, future family and anyone in the home or in the backyard, we removed these large pine trees. Upon realization that we should have consulted this commission and received pre-approval, I had reached out to the Conservation Commission and have filed a retroactive application with the help of the administrator. We've been cooperating with the Conservation Administrator to support a plan and put together a proposal for regrowth. That proposal is to grow grass and landscape a portion of the yard and to plant several native trees and bushes along the left side of and back of the property, in particular where the property abuts the drainage easement. Thank you for the time and consideration. I'm happy to field any questions.
All right, I'll mention two things, Mr. Milano. One is you're not the first person that this has happened to, okay, that we have before us, and that was a very good summary. Thank you. John or Eileen, would you like to make comments on this particular proposal to, I guess, to do some replanting and some revegetation?
So that's a good recap of the project. So at this point, the commission's got to decide basically what you want for remediation or mitigation of the riverfront area. So the riverfront area is by law only. It's a stream that's a direct tributary to Sandy Brook, and it's at the rear left of the rear left of the lot. And in addition to that, most of the lot, certainly all the work areas, is within bordering land subject to flooding. So it's buffer zone to bank, riverfront area, and BLSF. So the commission needs to decide if you want to allow some of that area that was formerly naturally vegetated to become lawn, and how much of it you want restored. And I would recommend the restoration be a combination of planting and basically leaving what's there alone as far as stumps and natural woody debris and mulch that's from the grinding. Leave all that there in addition to any plantings you may require.
All right, let's see if the commission has any comments or questions for clarification purposes. We have Dawn, anything?
Nothing at this time.
All right, Gail.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So I saw in the description of the work, it said that 15 pine trees were to be removed. Have you removed all of those, or there's still more to take out?
So those 15 trees were removed.
Okay, and then, so we were out on a site visit this week, last week, but it was this week. And I just was trying to get a sense of, from the area where the trees were removed. So from the back of your house, where are you planning to have the limit of your lawn? What is it that you're looking for there?
Yeah, so in the property goes about 65 to 70 feet back from the middle of the house. And I think what we were considering is about 30 feet of that. So almost half to the middle property. So as John mentioned, in the back left corner where the culvert is further than that 65 feet. So taking the nearest point from the back of the house to the property line is about 68 or 70 feet. So we would propose between 30 and 35 feet for the lawn, and then have the growth beyond that all the way, especially in the left side to the drainage easement.
So just so I can get a kind of sense of what we were looking at there, you said to the property line. Is the property line where the stream is?
Not the stream, but there's like these rocks. I don't know if you noticed where the rocks were. So it's sort of a V shape.
So they'd be on the other side of the stream? Or which side are the rocks? Are they,
on the near side.
The near side, okay. All right, that's all I have, Larry.
All right, thank you. Indra, any questions on this one?
No, nothing.
Okay, Bill, anything further?
So the stream is actually off of your property. Did I get that right?
Yes, I believe so. I think the only part that touches the property is the drainage easement at the very back left corner.
Okay. I'm just thinking we normally have some kind of demarcation separating, to protect the resource area. Whether we would, I think we should be requiring some kind of a fence along the stream, 20 feet from the stream or something like that. That would be my comment.
All right. All right. Jennifer.
Nothing to add beyond what the other commissioners have already stated and what John said as well.
Ed, anything further, Ed?
Nothing new to add.
Okay. Before we get to any further discussion, is there anyone in the audience for 5 Fowler Terrace that would like to make a comment? All right, so it seems to me, John and Eileen and the commissioners, that we need to decide what's reasonable for a lawn is what, if this was only bordering vegetative wetlands, this is specifically to what Bill said, we often have had established the no disturb zone, which is in the regulations, at 20 feet to the bordering vegetative wetland. Whereas we have riverfront, a bylaw riverfront area, which has a significance, perhaps more than just the no disturb zone. You would have to think about that in terms of how much lawn that we're allowing and how much is revegetated. Then the second question is, once we establish that, we need to have a discussion on what we're expecting for revegetation, and John and Eileen may have some comments on that. So let's take the first item of business. What do we want to decide? Is 30 feet reasonable to have a water-sized yard with the remaining being reestablished as riverfront vegetation? Anyone can talk.
I think that sounds reasonable, if it's only 50 or 60 feet to the resource area.
I agree. And so for this, it's kind of limited in terms of the trees were taken down as kind of important. So do we need to look for improvement here, John? And would improvement be maybe, adding, I don't know if adding a barrier to protecting the resource area is an improvement or not, actually, if that would be considered an improvement. And what would we, because they actually have kind of altered the area. So, they're not going to return it back to what it was. What would be the improvement here? And does that apply in this situation?
So once again, so this is a riverfront area only under the bylaw and not under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act. So it's at your discretion as to whether or not you want to require an improvement.
All right, so unless someone disagrees, we have 30 feet as the lawn area, which people seem to think is reasonable and is what the applicant requested.
Larry?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Gail. I would just like to add that that they should consult with the office, and that whatever is planted, they have to be native plants, shrubs and so forth that would be in that area for the replanting. And it would be nice to have, not just, I saw that he had mentioned putting some maples in, and that would be good. And kind of replanting that area would be helpful to you. I noticed there's a sump hose coming out of the house, and that having some vegetation back there will help soak up some of the water and might, kind of at least keep any water issues from hopefully getting worse.
All right, do we want to be more specific in terms of trees versus shrubs, or should we leave that to staff to work out with the applicant?
I'm okay with that, but I would like to see a mix. I would like to see some trees there.
All right, any other comment on being more specific on trees versus shrubs, or on the specificity of either one? Any further comment from the commission?
He's already proposed a mixture of trees. There was some palm trees. No palm trees. Some maple trees, and then some arborvitaes, and then there's some shrubbery as well, and even some bleeding hearts and stuff. So, it sounds like he's on the road to a good mix or not, and I think the staff can work with him on that.
Okay. Unless someone has an opinion to the contrary, do we want any demarcation at the 30-foot line, like a post and rail fence, or ask them to consider some form of demarcation?
Yes.
Is that consistent with what we've asked other people to do for this particular demarcate, like for this particular area? I know we've had people put like stones up and things like that to protect other things, but is this a standard?
Well, we often ask for some type of demarcation, and people sometimes want a fence and just black off the area. Sometimes we've had some monuments to denote the line, and sometimes we've had just an open post and rail set up. John or Eileen, do you have any comments?
So that this is typically it's a requirement for setback for buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetland.
Yes.
And this is riverfront, but it doesn't really make much difference. It's still trying to protect a resource area from encroachment. So it's really the same idea.
Okay.
This is, yeah, again, I would just say that if there is going to be a fence, it should be something like a split rail or post and rail fence and not a solid fence so that, wildlife can go back and forth between the resource area.
I can recall a few occasions where we haven't required, we just let it be a continuous yard where the lawn is at 30 feet and the rest is naturally vegetated or revegetated riverfront area. I'm kind of okay with that personally, but whatever the commission wants to do here.
Well, I think
Is the
point
purpose so that there won't, sorry, Bill, you can go.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, if the purpose of putting up a demarcation is to note it and to protect it, is it to protect it from the potential like encroachment of like lawn growing in there and then not mowing? Because then it might be better to have something like stones. I know we've done that in the past, ask people to put like larger stones or monuments rather than a fence if they didn't want to do that.
Jim, it's for that, and it's also in some places we have problems with people dumping like landscape waste into wetlands and things like that.
Okay.
So one of the things, since this is bordering land subject to flooding, we wouldn't want a solid fence because it would potentially block flows of floodwaters. But a post and rail would be fine.
Okay. Or stones to demarcate, and then the area beyond the stones is
Right,
natural.
but we typically require stones in construction projects where they've got stones to get rid of anyway. In this case, you'd have to import stones. So.
And Larry, I don't, I envision this fence would be behind the shrubs and things, right? So he'd still have that kind of view of lawn to shrubs because it would be to prevent going into the resource area. And so I would think the fence would like be behind the trees and shrubs that we put in.
All right, let me ask Mr. Milano if he's heard all this discussion. So I think it would be fair to see if he has any comments on either what he's willing to do or given he's heard all this, what's his opinion?
I think our original intention was not to fence off the area. As Gail mentioned, we're not looking to sort of keep things out and kind of keep it more natural, or as Bill alluded to, kind of keep it as a continuous, from the lawn into the natural state. But I'm open to what the commission's interested in.
All right, I'm okay with foregoing the fence in this particular situation. As long as the planting plan is accomplished as agreed upon with our staff. But if anyone feels different, we can have a motion if you want, or we can just let it go with that. It's up to you folks.
I'm fine with that as long as the planting is clear that, you should not be mowing beyond that point of the lawn.
And not
Yes.
dumping landscape waste either.
Right. I'm okay with that also.
Yeah, well, I think Mr. Milano has heard all this, and I think he'd probably agree that he will not dump waste in back there.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So do we have a negative conditional determination to review?
We do.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. While Eileen's putting it up, I'll just start going with the findings. We've already sort of gone over the project description, the history. Other findings, the commission's making no finding as to the exact boundaries of the resource areas on the site. And our recommendation is to issue a negative conditional determination with the following conditions. One, that the decisions only for the work proposed in the project description. No other work is allowed. And condition number 2 is more specific, that no other trees beyond those permitted by this decision shall be removed without the approval of the conservation administrator or commission. Condition 3, no additional land disturbance or stump or woody debris removal shall be permitted to allow natural revegetation as much as possible, except as allowed in condition number 4. Condition number 4, the lawn may be extended, and I think we came to a conclusion of 30 feet. So I'll put that in there.
From the back of the house, John?
Yeah, from the house.
30 feet from the house, not from the existing lawn. Is that what? Okay.
Right.
So I'll clarify that. Condition 5, the applicant shall plant X native trees. So his proposal was for 4 or 5. So we'll just say 5 native trees. And I don't think Dan's proposal said a specific number of shrubs, but maybe like half a dozen shrubs. Would that be sufficient? And then obviously they have the species have to be pre-approved by staff, and the tree shall be no smaller than 4 feet high. Condition 6 is regarding dumping, which we already discussed. 7 is prohibition on chemicals within the buffer zone, or should be riverfront area as well. 8, members of the commission's right to access the site to do inspections, and 9, the standard condition about non-compliance.
Okay, do we need a requirement, John, for the applicant to meet with you prior to beginning work on the restoration?
Well, there is a condition that we have to approve the species. So I don't think beyond us actually telling him, what specific plants to plant, we need to get more
Okay.
involved.
All right. All right. Anything further from the commission on this?
Nope.
Could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project at 5 Fowler Terrace under the Burlington bylaw, Article 14?
So moved.
Done.
Indra.
All right, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That is 7-0-0. Mr. Milano, thank you for working so well with the commission. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.
All right, have a good evening.
You as well.
Okay. All right. Now we're on item 5B. Notice is given, the Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a WebEx virtual public meeting, during which time we have a request for determination of applicability filed by Marcelo Fernandez. The commission will take all information related to the proposed installation of an in-ground pool within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. The proposed project is located at 17 Wilhelmina Ave, and the commission will consider the information and make a determination. The application is being heard under both the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14, and information on the application is obtained by emailing conservation@burlington.org. Mr. Fernandez, how are you tonight?
Hello, everyone. I'm well, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to state Mr. Fernandez is my neighbor down the street. So we're ready to begin. So like we did the other one, Marcelo, we have the other guests, so we'll let you, if you want to say what you have in mind, as little or as much as you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I don't have a lot to say. The only thing is as you know, we are in the middle of doing an addition. And after we finish this project, we have plans to install an in-ground pool. And I've learned that we have wetlands. And I tried to figure out how the distance. I thought I was about 80 feet within the wetlands. When you came out the other day, you say you measure, you're roughly, I was roughly 75 feet where I wanted to put the pool from the wetlands. The good thing, I think, is that I don't have any trees. I don't put any trees in the vegetation, just basically lawn. Other than that, I know I have to deal with the easement line from Eversource, and I have to stay within that easement line. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay. All right. John or Eileen, do you have any comments on this? I'll just state that when I was there, I just kind of measured, guesstimated 75 feet from the edge of the easement line is what I measured, not from the house. Okay, so John or Eileen?
So I was in touch with Mr. Fernandez a few months ago when he was getting the building permit for his addition. The addition is really just outside the buffer zone, but the pool would be squarely in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. As Larry estimated, it's something like 70 feet from, well, by my measure on the maps, from his proposed pool location to the BVW, and I don't really have an issue with that, except that I did get confirmation from the building department that the easement, I'm not sure if it's Eversource or who it is, but they will not allow any sort of building, any sort of structure within their easement. So it's gonna make it very tight for them to squeeze it in, I think. But I don't have an issue with it.
And Eileen, just to clarify the commission, a pool is considered a structure?
It is. Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. So why don't we go around to the commission and see if they have any further comments on this? Dawn, anything further on this one?
No, nothing further.
Gail?
No.
Andra?
No.
Bill?
No, it clearly meets the requirements that we have from the conservation. I would like to say, Mr. Fernandez, that I have a split level as well, which has been modified. And I find it interesting to see how different split levels are modified. I've never seen two alike, I don't think. Yours is definitely going to be one of the best ones I've seen. It's a very creative design. It's going to look very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I do have one question though. I know I'm in a tight spot if I wanted to put the in-ground pool directly behind the sunroom I'm just building. And is it possible to go all the way to that line, or do I have to be a certain feet away from that line? How does it work?
I think you probably have to double check that with Andy Ungerson from the building department, but I would assume that the line is just where the line is and you can go up to it.
Okay.
But that's just my assumption. You'll have to double check that with him. So your pool could go back as far as there.
So the edge of the pool, I'll double check with Andy, but so the edge of the pool can be up against that line, but I can have paved or concrete around that pool beyond that line?
Oh, no. I believe the patio, the concrete surround is also counted as a structure. So the pool and its patio surround would have to all be outside the easement.
Are you sure about that one? Because I know they allow you to plant stuff there, I was under the impression that you could put a patio as long as it was ground level. And
Andy left me a voicemail this afternoon, and that was my note. I didn't take my notebook home with me, but that was my note that he said pool or patio.
Oh, okay.
So he'll have to just check with Andy.
All right. But
on that
check,
one.
check with Eversource.
Yes.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
So where are we now? Indra, did I call on you?
No, yes, you did. I don't have anything.
Bill, anything further?
Nope, nothing further.
Jennifer?
Nothing further now.
Ed?
Nothing at time.
I have nothing either. Is there anyone in the audience for the proposed pool project at 17 Wilhelmina? Guess not. All right, so we have a negative conditional determination, and either Eileen or John, would you just go through the key points there?
Okay. Can everybody see this? I hope so. So, Mr. Marcello, I sent you a draft of this earlier. The applicant proposed to install a 35 by 14-foot in-ground pool with concrete surround in the rear yard of 17 Wilhelmina Avenue. The pool would be completely within existing lawn. The work was located approximately 70 feet from the BVW, or at least the proposed location was 70 feet. So the commission is voting to issue a negative determination of applicability for this decision, as noted in this decision for work at 17 Wilhelmina. This decision is for work as outlined in the project description. No other work has been reviewed or permitted by this decision. Prior to permitting any work beyond what's permitted in this decision, the applicant shall contact the Conservation Department in order to determine whether or not a new filing will be required. If the pool location has to be changed to avoid the utility easement on site, it shall be no closer than 50 feet from the wetland. I suspect it'll end up being further because the easement, they're going to have to move it up out of the easement. Prior to beginning any construction on site, sediment barriers shall be installed and inspected by the Conservation Department. Sediment barriers shall be installed across the lot at the limit of work. They can be staked compost filter stocks, hay bales, or staked straw wattles. All construction or demolition materials and excavated soil shall be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. No stockpiling of soil or other materials within 50 feet of wetlands. No tracking of sediments onto public roadways shall be allowed, and in the event that occurs, the sediments shall be swept from the roadway daily. There shall be no filling or significant grading of the property under this decision. All of this existing drainage patterns shall be maintained. Debris, sediment, lawn clippings, and landscaping materials shall not be dumped in the vegetated wetlands. And any debris that falls into the wetlands shall be immediately removed by hand. Pesticides, herbicides should not be used within 100 feet of wetlands. Fertilizer may be used if it's a slow-release phosphorus-free fertilizer. Members of the Conservation Commission shall have the right to enter upon and inspect the premises while work is ongoing. And any non-compliance shall be deemed a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay, so Marcelo, you can ask questions now, or even after it's voted, you can call the office and ask questions for any clarification or explanation. Essentially, what this means is if the commission votes for this, it essentially means that if you adhere to some rather routine conditions that are there's nothing special here, that means the project's approved. Okay, so do you have any questions at this time? You're welcome to.
No, I think I'm good. The only thing I probably will contact Andy. It's about the patio versus the edge of the pool. To my easement line, because when you were here the other day, I called him on that day, and I was under the impression that it would be the edge of the pool, not any patio around. I'm not believing you, Eileen. It's you've been very helpful throughout this, but I'll just double check with Andy on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. You should make sure of what will be allowed and what's not allowed, of course. All right. So if there's nothing further from the commission, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the pool project at 17 Wilhelmina Ave under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the state's Wetland Protection Act?
So moved. Indra.
Second, Ed.
Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail, how do you vote?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
chair votes yes. That's approved unanimously, 7-0-0. Marcelo, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good evening.
Sure.
All right, so you're welcome to say and listen to all this stuff anyway if you want to. Well, I think he's gone anyway. Okay. All right. All right, so next we have a continued public hearing, erosion and sedimentation control permit for 300 Summit Drive. This is proposed by the Terrace company. It's to construct 35,000 square feet of commercial office and laboratory space with associated structured parking and associated site improvements. Is there someone here for this project?
Yes, there is. Mr. Chair, this is Scott Weiss from the Gutierrez Company.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yourself, sir?
Hanging in there, enjoying all of our WebEx meeting time.
Yeah, keeping the mask close, I'm sure.
Yeah, yep.
Mr. Chairman, before you go, this is Indra. I just want to mention that I have watched the video of the last meeting.
All right, thanks, Indra.
Mhm.
Okay, Mr. Weiss, I'll leave the floor open to you if you have any comments before we get to review details.
Excellent, thank you. Again, for the record, Scott Weiss with the Gutierrez Company. With me tonight is Will Park from Sims Maney McKee, the site civil engineer. And he can help drive. We also have with us Maurice Fryer from Sims Maney McKee and Dan Dudinsky from Gutierrez as well. So a couple extra eyes and ears on during this process. Last time we met, a few weeks back, we presented the project, as you know, which was feasible through the recent town meeting rezonings to promote life science development in the community. And this project, it would be a lab life science type facility. We are also in front of the planning board at the same time. When we were in front of you last time, there were 6 or 7 items questions that were outstanding. We did provide a response to comments and follow-up. I will run through that quickly just to give you some response on that if you didn't already see it. Then there were a couple other topics that were requested of us to go through at this meeting, and we'll just give a quick summary on that. I'll try not to take a lot of time, leave as much time for your questions as possible. Will can share the site plan with you so that you guys can see that as well as we go through. I will just go through, not in a lot of detail, the response to questions that you guys asked at the prior meeting. That response was dated November 4th. Hopefully you guys have received and had a chance to look through it. So the couple of items on there, or the items that I want to talk about, there were some questions about the detention basin, the sizing, the routing through it, how that was factored into the drainage system. And just to remind everyone that the flows into this detention basin are all under the DEP stormwater guidance are all clean water flows. They've all been pre-treated. It's either clean rooftop or grassed areas that flow into it, or they have gone through some other pre-treatment type structure, be it a bioretention area, a water quality unit, or something to that effect. So the detention basin is actually just a volume control structure, and we are not seeking additional treatment quality, so travel times, detention time, forebays, things of that nature. All of that has been pre-treated before entering into the detention basin. As we go through this, sorry, was that?
Not only is it pre-treated, but it's received pre-treatment and full full treatment prior to getting to the dry detention basin.
Thank you. Well, sorry about that.
No
Miss,
problem.
that's why we have the experts, right? I'll run through all of the items. If you want to stop me, please feel free to jump in and ask any questions along the way.
Scott, could we just take a pause after each one? So if anybody has a
Sure.
comment, it might be the most efficient way of doing it.
Sure.
So anybody, either our administrator, assistant administrator, or any of the commissioners have any comment on that first response on the fact that it's not doing any treatment, it's just retention? All right, let's go to number 2.
Number 2 was a request for some added detail on construction sequencing for the site. So what we did was outline a sequencing protocol that is being added to the plan. And of course, the first item, which we know John and Eileen will appreciate, is a pre-meeting with conservation staff as the first order of business. But obviously outlining that all erosion controls must be in place prior to any earth-moving activities, installing temporary access drives, but really into the meat of it is before the existing detention basin can be disturbed, the new basin must be first constructed and put in place so that we have somewhere to direct stormwater, and that would be used as a construction sediment basin. There may be some sediment forebays added prior to as well, but that must be put in place prior to any removal or rerouting of water from the existing basin, and that's obviously a critical piece as we go. And then all of the earthwork activities must be completed in such a way as to keep the stormwater routed to the main discharge points, which are really either in the northeast or northwest corner of the site where water flows today. So it is pretty well contained in that this is in a little bit of a bowl already, with the only discharge primarily to the north. There's one small area to the south, but primarily it flows to the north.
Okay. On that one, John or Eileen or any of the commissioners, we asked for a construction sequence plan. Do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay, so then I had a comment. What you have essentially said is that this is the details are going to be developed in coordination with the contractor. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
The major details of how this will be constructed will be worked out with the contractor as we get into soil quantities and what soil must be moved from where to where. But we thought the important components of assuring that none of the existing drainage is relocated until new facilities are put in place was the crux of the issue.
Originally, I had concerns, Scott, that I looked at the steep slopes around the detention basin. And then after I said that, after I got offline, I actually realized that if you're going to have erosion from steep slopes or under construction, it's going to all fall into the bowl anyway. So, so I realized that. The only other thing is, I didn't see any mention. Is dewatering going to be required, or is there contaminated water on the property? They'll have to be treated before discharge, temporary dewatering.
So we would not anticipate any temporary dewatering. There's perhaps the possibility at some of the footings for the building that could occur. I don't know, Will, if you recall or know offhand how deep to groundwater in that area. I'm sure in the area of the parking deck that wouldn't be an issue, but perhaps the building footings.
I think it'll all be comfortably above the groundwater table. If anything, it would be after a rainstorm, if there's open open trenches, that would be the main dewatering. I don't think we're getting down to the groundwater level.
Okay,
Right.
so could you, I think you probably want to, if you are, I think we can condition this to have a dewatering plan if it's required before anything is done and before it is discharged. So we could have it in the decision, I think. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
Okay, so
That'd be fine.
do we, John and Eileen, do you think we need to have a condition, thinking ahead here, that a construction sequencing plan to prevent erosion off-site that addresses any potential issues during construction should be submitted? Or because they're going to develop a detailed plan. Do we need anything like that? What's your opinion?
So they have to do a SWIP, and that I assume that would be incorporated in the SWIP. Am I correct, Will?
Yeah, that's correct, John. We would expand on the conceptual construction sequencing that we provided in the comment response letter, and an additional site plan showing the sequencing could be provided.
So will the stormwater pollution prevention plan that's required be submitted to the commission?
We can require it be. We could put in a condition saying so.
All right, because if there's a problem, we'll immediately want to get that out and look at what they said they were going to do.
Right.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? This is Indra.
Yes, please do.
Regarding the dewatering, how deep the foundation is for the building?
So the foundations for the building are not anticipated to be extraordinarily deep. They'll just be below the frost line, 4 feet to the top of the footing. There's no reason to go significantly deep in here. Plus utilities will be able to run under because there's parking underneath, so you won't need to drop utilities down deep under the footings either. They can run all in the ceiling of the parking level.
Now, I know that in the last meeting, you were supposed to give us some information on the soil and how deep is the groundwater high level?
I'll have to look up depth to groundwater out there. I don't have that off the top of my head. I don't know, Will, if that's something you might have access to.
We have historic, but not since the recent 400, 600 summit fill was placed in this area.
That's right. So there's a lot of fill that's been put on top of most of this area. So groundwater is in some places, 5, 10, 20 feet below, or we have 5 to 20 feet of added soil placed in certain areas on top of the existing ground that was out there.
So this building would be on the top of the fill? Is that you're saying?
So some of the areas will need some additional remedial work or deeper foundations. But where the building sits, the sort of the view that you're looking at now, the top of the page portion of the building, which is sort of the westerly end, sits in a little bit of fill where the detention basin is today. And then at the opposite end, the easterly end, that's mostly on existing, more native soils. So.
Okay.
All right. Any other commissioners have comments on this? If there is not, then let's move on.
Okay. The southerly end of the parking lot, which extends out beyond the one-level parking deck, was picked up. I forget who made the comment off the top of my head, but we added a treatment unit, a water quality unit into the stormwater that's being collected from that area, which was not included previously, was not on the plans. So that water will be collected. It will flow through a water quality treatment unit down on the sort of top side of the parking deck, and then eventually to a infiltration unit. Correct, Will? Does that go into the infiltration, or does that just go around the deck?
This bypasses around the deck and daylight's over here.
Oh, sorry. Excuse.
But where I've circled is where we added the water quality unit to provide 80% or more TSS removal for this parking area.
Okay.
Any questions on that item?
Yeah, I thought there were 3 catch basins was there where you were circling on the.
That's
south
correct.
side. So where you were putting that device?
So the 3 catch basins are interconnected, and then will
Right.
all flow into the water quality unit. So
There's a daisy chain of them here. There's another catch basin just out of this viewport. They all daisy chain into manholes. And then this last manhole, this used to be a manhole here. And then one of the commission members accurately pointed out that this parking lot did not receive proper treatment, so we converted this drain manhole to a water quality unit.
I see. Okay.
By daisy chaining, are you meaning one structure is connected to the next, is connected to the next?
Good clarification. Daisy chain is probably not the correct word because catch basins are not connected to one another like daisy chain would imply. Every catch basin has a corresponding drainage manhole, and
Got
those
it.
manholes are connected.
In other words, it's not all in series, so that the third one gets the highest flow.
Correct.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Number 4, should we move on unless someone has a comment?
The only comment I have is I was the one who had pointed that out, and I think this fix is fine. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
excellent. Good catch, and thanks for commenting that we fixed the problem. So then the next one was some information about the infiltration design approach. And as we talked about, most of this area is glacial till, which is D category soils, which do not infiltrate. Will can probably describe this better. So the system is designed, when you talk about pipes and storage, as if nothing will infiltrate, but we do have some infiltration chambers on the site where those are designed sort of to the worst case soils just prior to no infiltration. Is that a rough, reasonable way to look at it, Will?
Yeah, so like Scott mentioned, the underlying soils were not great to begin with, the native soils in the mainly hydrologic soil group D or C. Further, there was construction fill from the 400, 600 project that was placed on top of it. So one could argue that with hydrologic soil group D, the project did not infiltration was not required. However, we think providing infiltration to the maximum extent practicable on project is a good idea. So we sited it up here where it's closest to native soils. This is kind of at the far end of those 400 and 600 summit fills. So what we have done, and to provide all the calculations according to the DEP standards, we assumed hydrologic soil group C, to size the system. However, our hydrologic model did not account for infiltration out of the bottom of this system, so that the system itself is essentially treated like just a subsurface detention system, so that we were sure that it can mitigate all the peak flows and properly discharge and does not take into account infiltration. Although we're quite sure that some will occur. I'm not sure I explained that any better than you, Scott. Sorry.
All right. Any comments from anyone from the commission side? All right, let's go to number 5.
So there was a comment about erosion control on the site, and we do have an erosion control plan. But with some of the slopes that are out there and where water is generally collecting to, especially at that northeast corner at the outlet from the new detention pond, what we've proposed and what we showed is adding, doubling up our hay bale silt fence lines in those areas. And obviously that gets installed right at the beginning so that we will increase our stormwater control, erosion controls in those locations, and added that to the plan as well.
Okay. John or Eileen, are you okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. Any commissioners have issues with this? Let's move to number 6.
Number 6 was I think it was a comment that John had made about the TSS removal calculations did not account for the water quality units that has been added in. Will, you can comment more detail about. I think you took a very safe approach in those that you were assuming 80% TSS removal, whereas most of the units achieve something more on line of 90+%.
Sure. So I believe our original submission only had 2 or perhaps 3 TSS removal calculation worksheets. And John had made the comment that we weren't taking credit for the proprietary treatment practices, those water quality pretreatment units. So we went ahead and added those in with what we believe is a conservative TSS removal rate of 80%. Additionally, we provided additional worksheets for 4 out of the 5 discharges into the dry detention basin. As we were saying earlier, all of them receive the required treatment before they even get to the dry detention basin. I say 4 out of the 5 discharges because the 5th is just lawn area, which does not require treatment. And then in follow-up correspondence as recently as today, we were emailing with John and Eileen about the proper sizing of these pretreatment units, or at least the newer ones part of this project. We provided sizing calculations for those. They are all context CDS units, which we are very fond of. And we provide some third-party verification of the TSS removal rate. And the third-party verification showed that these are typically in the mid to high 90s. So we feel comfortable that these 4 treatment train TSS removal worksheets are accurate and conservative.
Okay. Any comments from anyone? Number 6.
I concur with that. I mean, Will has been very quick getting the information to us that we've requested, and it looks good.
All right. All right. If there's nothing further, let's move to number 7.
Number 7, the last one was some questions about the bioretention area, which is located just adjacent to the access drive and the front entry, as Will is highlighting. Will and Marisa provided some added details about the bioretention area and the volume and the treatment that's provided and the storage. Again, while the intent is not necessarily to, the design does not take into account any infiltration. There there may be some infiltration in that area. There may be some uptake in the water from the vegetation in there, and it has sufficient storage to meet the water quality standards. And Will, you can expand.
Yeah, the bioretention areas are not intended to provide recharge to the native soils beneath it, like a traditional infiltration system. It provides storage and treatment from the vegetation, which will provide a detailed ground cover planting plan for these. That's pretty prescriptive from the DEP regulations. Gets treatment from the 18 inches of bioretention media, imported media layer that we'll be installing, and then the ponding volume itself above the media and below the outlet. And we were thinking about this again because the underlying soils and fill soils from a few years ago don't have good draining characteristics. We decided to add a 4-inch perforated underdrain at the bottom of that filter media, bioretention filter media, and tie that into the outlet control structure just so that it does properly drain down and doesn't become stagnant between storms. But at that time, by the time it gets into the underdrain system and out, it's already been fully treated. And that's all part of recommended as part of the DEP design. It's only when you're, installing them in soils like a hydrologic soil group A or B that it's going to drain properly through the bottom of the filter media where you don't need to do the underdrain, but we thought it was appropriate here.
Any comments or questions on this one? Is there soil above the 4-inch drain sufficiently porous to allow for some seepage of water into the pipe?
Yes, absolutely. It's the DEP regs pretty much state exactly what that composition of that soil media needs to be. And I believe the operation and maintenance manual that we submitted for this project has recommended inspection periods of the vegetation and of the media, and what to do if that media becomes, filled with sediment or something, and calls for partial or full replacement every few years if it requires it.
Sure. Okay.
But we have very adequate pre-treatment. There's probably 10 feet of stone pre-treatment before the sheet flows off the parking lot through like 10 feet of stone media and then into the bioretention area. So we think it'll be quite clean by the time it gets to that surface.
Right. Do you think that within 48 hours after a storm, the retention area will be drained?
It should be, especially with the underdrain, yes.
I see. Okay. All right, thank you. Any comments from the commission, John or Eileen? All right, so that covers the response, which seems, I've heard no issues with from the commission or from staff on response to your response to comments. Do we have
Excellent.
other things? Do we have other things to move on to?
There were 3 other questions raised or topics that were identified that we can give a quick overview when we last met. One was the planting plan. One was some questions about energy use and sort of energy efficiency, carbon footprint, green development, I think it was. And the last was our bicycle and pedestrian facilities. And so we can give you just a real quick overview on those 3 items so that you have an understanding of those if you would like.
Oh, please do.
So first is the planting plan. The detail planting, for trees and shrubs are shown on here. The intent of the ground cover planting is certainly around the building. Well, let me first step back. We understand very clearly with our properties right next door and elsewhere in town, the significant limitations on watering and the limitations the town has had about water availability. We've had sites with wells that we are also not using for watering, so we're very aware of the drought conditions and the situation. So everything that we're going to have here is going to attempt to minimize lawn area. There will be some because it does provide for an attractive entrance. And we will limit that around the perimeter of the building. Only as you get around, for example, the perimeter of the parking lot and deck on the south end, as you get outside of that, most of that will be planted with more of a meadow mix, the type of area that will be mowed twice a year type of thing, let to grow more natural as we get out there and really limit where we need additional water for any of the plantings. Everything that we have on site, Will and the team at Sims Maney knows to do native water tolerant plantings. So that is also part of the approach and the plan as we go forward here as well. So that's sort of the generic quick overview on the planting and the approach, and it's really to minimize any need for irrigation or additional water to the maximum extent possible.
Okay.
So, Larry, this is Gail. I just have one comment, and I mean, thanks for sending the PDF because I can actually read the planting plan now. The only thing that I would like to see changed is that there's itemized 5 calorie pear trees are going to be planted. There have been a number of publications that have shown that these trees, especially, kind of in these kind of developments, offices, and types of mass planting, that they actually become invasive and they spread into wild areas. So, I mean, you can talk to John, your landscaper, a nice, not quite like a pear tree, but, serviceberry is a nice native plant that has white flowers also and is wildlife value. But it's something to consider, maybe a different planting for those 5 trees at least.
Gail, in addition to that, I'll just add that the Bradford pear trees seem to be more susceptible. I don't know about the tree you mentioned, but they seem to be more susceptible to damage. The limbs are somewhat weak. They break rather easily.
Sorry, I'm the civil engineer, not the landscape architect. It was the PC was the one that you've concerned being an invasive?
Yes, there's just a number of studies, and some states are actually starting to ban them. That they, when they're planted in groups, they can actually produce fertile fruit and be spread.
Okay, thank you. And Chairman, sorry, what was the common name or abbreviation that you were referring to?
I mentioned Bradford pear. I thought that was what we were talking about. Maybe we're not.
It looks like this.
It's a related one. It's called the aristocrat calorie pear in the planting.
Oh, okay.
But they're related. Bradford pear has the same problem.
Right.
We'll note that, though. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. That actually ends up helping us finding those things in advance. So, any other landscape related questions? The next item was some comments or questions about the green development approach, energy efficiency. The details of the building haven't been identified yet, but there are a number of things that are included in this plan. As we said, we do have a fair amount of open space by parking under the building and creating the deck. We've reduced the impervious surface areas. The building will have, a non-absorptive roof. It'll be a white rooftop at a minimum. It probably, because of the lab type use, will not be a green roof. We will, because there'll probably be a fair amount of equipment up there. The building will meet and exceed all energy code requirements. And for this site, as we talked about, doing very high water tolerant native plantings and minimizing irrigation requirements on site. We will be doing everything for the main site and building to minimize both consumption of resources and the like. But as a lab building, there will be some pretty high intensity activities, higher airflow within the building, and that usually ends up requiring a more significant envelope being part of the building structure.
Any comments by the commission or staff on this one?
Well, this is Bill. I was the one who had raised the topic of green, or the carbon footprint, basically, of the development. I understand it's a lab building, and that's different from just an office building. The white roof is a good idea. The significant amount of plantings that's going on in this drawing will, of course, help to absorb some of the carbon from the footprint of the building. I assume you're heating it with gas?
That is correct. That would be the plan.
Okay. The only comment that I would have is something which, is something I would like to see, is the parking structure itself. I know there's a similar size parking structure in town that has a complete solar panel roof for it, covering all of the upper level. That's something that I would encourage.
Gail and Bill, I just want to kind of, speak to what you've brought up and, champion here. They're not going to redesign the building, but thinking forward in other lab buildings that I'm sure that you might be looking forward to build in the future. There are a number of buildings that are built that are lab buildings. If you think of a number in Kendall Square that are platinum LEED certified. So it is possible to build green buildings for lab-based function. And also, one of the things I was thinking about, I don't know how much area is here, but not all solar panels, if there's roof, vents and different types of equipment that has to be on the roof, you can put photovoltaics and solar panels on land. And so in a building the size with the energy needs it's going to have, that you could be a little bit more creative and maybe actually have like a, mini solar field or something like that would help some of the solar the energy use at this site. I also curious whether not, necessarily related to what we're doing here, but is there any mission to have offer carpooling or vans and to commuting from commuter rail, if there is still commuter rail, but it's over. But some type of transportation to, not only for local residents, alleviate the traffic, create the gridlock that happens on 128 around Burlington, but also just in terms of carbon footprint.
So a number of good comments there. Just to note, there's a good example of the building and what it might look like just on the bottom left of the plan that you're looking at right now. That's the Millipore building, which has a white roof and has a solar facility on it. So we're not opposed to doing it. A lot of times it just has to be worked out as part of the design with the ultimate user of the building. So that we can fit the equipment on top and also try to leave some space. This new building that we're talking about will have a slightly smaller footprint, but it may have as much equipment on there. So it's until some of that is defined, we will certainly explore the potential of adding solar as part of it, as well as on the parking deck as well. And the Millipore building itself is a LEED certified. I'm trying to remember what level. I can't remember if it was gold or silver. I don't recall off the top of my head, but it was not platinum, but it was a pretty high level lead building as well. So we are aware of that, and we would typically follow that. Most of our building processes for what we consider the shell of the building, which is what we can commit to now, will follow lead processes and be lead certified or lead certifiable, and then it's the details of the user, the tenant inside, that really dictates what they can do and they can't do depending on their processes and their lab use. But we would tend to encourage that as well as we go forward.
It'd be great to some way capture, water and to reuse for landscaping and so forth, like gray water and things like that, if possible. I know the Genzyme building that they built a long time ago in Kendall Square, that's has a green roof on it.
Okay, any further comments from the commission or staff on the green aspects of the building?
Just to point out that there is Gail mentioned ground-mounted solar. There's a manufacturer in Burlington right on 3rd Avenue that has ground-mounted solar panels that, could possibly fit into the landscaping as well.
And I think it applies. The solar investment tax credit will still, for all of next year, will be 22%, and then it's supposed to expire. I don't know. You have to have your system online by the end of next year to take advantage of that. With the new administration coming in, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he froze the tax credit at that level at 22% for some years to come. I'm not sure if that will happen or not, though.
That's good information to have.
Okay. There was one more topic, bike trails.
One more topic, and it's bicycle and pedestrian access and network. What you can see here around the perimeter of the site in the sort of white off-white is a trail system, a combination of sidewalks, stone dust paths similar to what's out there, sidewalk along the edge of the road, and then on the right edge of the plan at the north side of the site, that is an emergency access drive to provide access down the building. But most of the time that will function as a additional link within the sidewalk and trail system. And as you may recall, or you may or may not recall, we did complete a full sidewalk system down Summit Drive to Middlesex Turnpike, which connects Middlesex Turnpike all the way down to the south towards the Market Basket down there, as well as connecting into the north by the mall and traveling up north all the way to Bedford, I believe. So it is all connected. And there is the ability for bicycle connections as well. We will have covered bicycle storage within the parking under the building. So you could ride your bike all the way to the building, park it underneath, and then go right inside to the building from that point without undercover. Although if you're looking for the cover for your bike, I guess you're not as worried about the elements if you're riding in the rain or in adverse weather conditions. But at least you can store your bike and get into the building from there without being outside.
Right. Any comments from the commission further on this? Okay, so does that wrap up the topics to discuss, Scott?
I believe we've covered everything at this point.
All right. I did not hear John or Eileen or the commissioners. Is there anything further we're requesting from these folks?
I think we got everything we've requested today.
All right. And what's the timeline? Has a hearing opened with planning board or something similar like that?
Yes, it does. We're in front of planning right now. We have some follow-up discussion with them. Nothing tremendously significant on the site plan at this point. And we will be back in front of them next week.
Could we, John, does it, Mr. Weiss, does it sound like we can anticipate, if there's nothing further, that we could close in December 10th?
I would think so, yes.
John?
Certainly.
Okay, that's the plan.
So we can have a draft decision ready for that meeting.
All right, very good. Okay. Mr. Weiss, Mr. Park and company, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for your time. And we'll say very good, focused comments. Really caught some things that should make it a better plan, too.
All right, thank you for that. All right, folks,
Thank you,
so we'll see
everyone.
you. You folks
Thank you.
have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Larry, we should have a vote to continue.
All right, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing at 300 Summit Drive to December 10th?
So moved, Ed.
Second, Don.
All right, so Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill? Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The hearing is continued to December 10th by 7:00. All set.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care, folks. Okay, as we said earlier in the evening, items 7, 8, and 9 have been continued. Do we need a vote to continue them to December 10th?
We do.
Could I have a motion to continue Redmond Street roadway, 4 Redmond Street and 5 Redmond Street, the continued public hearings till December 10th? Is there a motion?
So moved, Bill.
Second?
Second, Indra.
All right, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Those hearings are continued to December 10th. Vote is 7:00. Okay, now we're on, let's see, let's see here. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, we have a public hearing. Notice is given, the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a WebEx virtual public hearing. The Conservation Commission will discuss and take public comments on a proposed update to the Burlington Stormwater Management Bylaw governing erosion and sedimentation control, which is Article 14, Section 6 of the Burlington General Bylaws. A draft of the bylaw update may be viewed, and there's a link given. If you have questions or comments from anyone in the audience or in the town, they certainly can get a hold of the commission, one of the commissioners or the staff, or email conservation@burlington.org. All right.
Larry, Eileen's gonna be talking about this, but I just want to say that link and the legal ad, probably because of the webpage update, people should give us a couple days to get that on there. So.
All right. So, Eileen, could you give us an overview of why we're doing this and what we're trying to accomplish? Sort of like first the overview before we get into the details.
Well, I created a little PowerPoint that I was going to just share, which is just going to give a little bit of background to the newer commissioners. But I realized that I also did it. I'm on my Mac and I did it. So anyway, let's see if it works. It'll only take 2 minutes. So I just wanted to let the newer commissioners know that the MS4 permit that we have now kind of was something that was developed from the 70s. The Clean Water Act led to the creation of the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. And then that sort of grew so that the EPA regulates industrial activities, construction activities, and municipal stormwater, which is where we fit in. The first municipal separate storm sewer system permit was issued in 2003, and Burlington adopted a stormwater bylaw in 2007, which was largely authored by Larry. So thank you very much for that, Larry. And then over time, a sort of contentious new permit was being developed, and it was supposed to go into effect in 2016, but it actually went into effect in 2018. And so there's 260 municipalities that are authorized to discharge to waters of the US under their individual MS4 permits, and Burlington has an individual permit. So the new permit requires municipalities to update their bylaws to manage stormwater in new development and redevelopment with provisions that are at least as stringent as those listed in the permit. There are 6 minimum control measures in the permit, and the 2 that are relevant to us in our discussion tonight are construction site stormwater runoff and post-construction stormwater management. So then this is just a summary of what we're going to be discussing. The bylaw shall require that low impact development site planning and design strategies must be used to the maximum extent feasible. Stormwater treatment and infiltration practices should follow the guidance in Volume 2 of the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. And the handbook requires retention of the first inch for all new development and some redevelopment projects. So we're suggesting that we apply the 1 inch standard for everything. And then stormwater management systems on new development sites shall be designed to conform with the Mass Handbook standards and to retain 1 inch of volume and or remove 90% of the average annual load of total suspended solids and 60% of the average annual load of total phosphorus generated from the impervious area on the site. And stormwater management systems on redevelopment sites shall meet these various stormwater standards and shall retain the volume of runoff equivalent to or greater than 0.8 of an inch. But we had suggested that we're going to just make it an inch across the board, remove 80% of the average annual post-construction TSS and 50% of the average annual load of total phosphorus generated. And then a couple of other things that we changed were that we altered language to reflect the requirements for submission of as-built drawings no later than 2 years after completion of construction projects. And we added some new definitions and 1 new objective and a statement of compliance with the current permit. So if you want, I'm happy to pull up the red line version as well. If you guys want to go through any of the proposed changes in more depth. Is that too fast?
Yeah, I think we need to go over people's comments because they've circulated them to the commissioners and they may have some comments. I have a few, maybe Bill and others have some too as well. So just to make it clear to anybody who's watching that we have a new stormwater permit effective 2018 that was updated from the 2003 permit. It took them 15 years to come up with this. And our bylaw, we are required to make our bylaw, you correct me, Eileen, if this is wrong, our bylaw consistent with the EPA permit. And so we've drafted some edits and they've given us, we have to accomplish this by June. So we're either going to go to the January, if possible, or the May town meeting. Is all this correct so far? Eileen?
Yes, that's true. We're hoping to aim for the January meeting, but we'll see how we go.
And the details apply to how we manage new development projects, stormwater in new development projects and redevelopment projects. And our intent is to make our bylaw as stringent as what's in the 2018 permit because we're required to. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly right. Yep.
All right. And so what we ought to do, I think, is maybe just go through the document, not necessarily we can see the document for ourselves. Everyone's had it, but if people have comments, maybe we can go through it sort of section by section, Eileen, and ask for comments. Is that a good way of doing it?
Sure, if you'd like. Do you want me to pull it up or do we?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But I don't think you need to necessarily, unless you generally want to say, here are the definitions. Do anybody have any changes? I mean, that kind of thing.
Oh, right.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. We may, I don't know if we have anybody in the audience for this, but we may have. We should ask for comments from the audience as well.
Can you guys see that?
And unless somebody has something they want to add prior to your comments, Eileen, I guess the first thing is the definition. Is that correct? where you've made some comments?
Yeah, we added in a few for clarification. We didn't have a definition of the as-built drawings, as far as I remember. We added in a separate one for common plan of development. We did mention it, but we didn't have it just as a separate definition. And then we defined low impact development because that's something that's now required with the new bylaw. And we just added another definition of total maximum daily load because that it's just relevant in terms of where the stormwater is going. Did anybody have any issues with those?
Anybody on the commission have an issue with the definitions?
Nope.
I had one comment. Now the definition, the requirements reference total phosphorus. Do we need to put in a definition of that? Because we have one.
I haven't found one. I've looked through various model bylaws and other people's regulations, and I don't see it defined anywhere, so I didn't.
Well,
if you have a definition, I'm happy to add it.
Yeah, it just seemed obvious because we have one for TSS.
Total phosphorus is just total phosphorus. There isn't really.
I have a general question about total phosphorus. I don't remember seeing us regulating phosphorus coming off of sites in the past. Is this totally new? What are the sources of it? Is it strictly fertilizer? And how do you treat for it?
Oh boy, that's a lot of questions. Phosphorus is going to come from stuff like fertilizer. It's also going to, I think, come from decaying plant matter. What do you do for it? Well, there's various. The permit has a whole lot of curves, design curves, which are showing you how much phosphorus you have to remove and what sort of design features you can use to meet those limits. So a lot of modeling has already gone into how to remove it, and
Okay.
that's
And have we not
maybe
been
more
regulating
detail than
this
we
at
need.
all?
Have we? Sorry, what?
Have we not been regulating this at all up until now?
I don't think it was spelled out up to now.
No.
That's right,
No.
John, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it wasn't. And basically, if you infiltrate, they give you credit for removing total phosphorus. So, which I think is a little strange because there is soluble phosphorus, and it may not really be removed when you infiltrate it, but they give you credit for it anyway.
Yep, they are.
All right, shall we move to section 6.4? Is there anyone in the audience for this one under definitions? No. All right, let's go to 6.4, applicability. You don't propose a change there, Eileen. I had a comment. Does anyone have a comment on 6.4, applicability?
Oh, sorry. Larry, you had something I forgot. What was your
Yes.
comment?
Well,
Just remind me.
I'd be welcome discussion by the commission. We have a sentence here that says the applicability of this bylaw is maintenance of existing landscaping, garden areas, and associated with single-family dwelling disturbing less than 10,000 square feet. Do we want to be more explicit that in the applicability of the bylaw that no permit is required under 10,000 square feet, but do we want to also say you're not exempt from the requirements of preventing I don't know what the right wording is, but we have folks that are exempt that are disturbing a small amount. We've had occasions where they're making a big mess, even though they don't require a permit. And so I think that we say what they're responsible for complying with the provisions of this bylaw if you are 10,000 to 20,000 and above 20,000 square feet. Well, if you're under 10,000, you don't have to get a permit, but it doesn't mean you're allowed to pollute.
I think we do address that down further in. John, do you remember where it is? What am I looking for? Enforcement.
Yeah.
So I didn't change this bylaw any more than really was necessary. So I haven't touched any of the standard stuff that was already there.
All right, well, I just think we should make it clear that if you disturb less than 10,000 square feet, that the requirements to not discharge into our public municipal sewer system is still imposed. And you,
Yes, I agree with Larry. I think that's a good point. Yes. Indra.
okay, anyone else have a comment on this one?
Did you give me specific wording? So is it something like projects that disturb less than 10,000 shall not be exempt from what you just said about
I don't know, we can come up with the wording. We should just note it, and if you want to put something in here, we'll work on it. I mean, we don't have to create the exact sentence now.
okay, do you want to move on to something else?
Yes, 6.5. You want to say anything there, Eileen?
No, I think this was just something I got from a different a model bylaw, and I just thought it was it made it nice and clear.
All right. Okay, and then you have the submission requirements further down in that section.
I do. We really don't need that much paper, and most of you prefer not to get the paper. So if that's what you mean, we're just going to go for 3 instead of, I think it was 13 before. It was a large number.
Okay. Any comments by the commission?
No, that's fine.
Okay, now we're on performance standards. We're on section 6.6 AII.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Eileen, you want to go over that?
This was what I had touched on briefly. Applicants shall retain the first 1 inch of runoff from total post-construction impervious area. And if we wish to add in the part about the removing the post-construction TSS and 60% of total phosphorus, we could include that in the regulations, but I think if we put it in here, then we can take our time on potentially producing any regulations, which we didn't have until now anyway.
Right.
And then because you have a very robust bylaw that you created, Larry. To the
All right.
extent,
Does anyone on the commission have comments on the section labeled AII performance standards?
Oh,
okay.
I have a comment.
I was just thinking that was too easy.
I think it's a very good idea to let people know what's expected when those main requirements that are outlined for development, for new development projects. But I think you should add in correspondingly what those requirements are, because they're in the MS4 permit for redevelopment projects as well. You only talk about 1 inch of site runoff, and you talk about 60% of the phosphorus and 90%. Well, for redevelopment, it's 80% for the TSS and it's 50% of the phosphorus. You might as well just somehow neatly list them for, here for development projects, this is it. And for redevelopment, this is it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
This is Indra. I have a question here.
Good point.
Why we are going to the lower level for redevelopment? Why the phosphorus removal 50%?
That's what the permit says?
Yeah, the EPA permit, that's the way they set it up. So we have to be consistent.
I see. Okay.
Presumably, it's more difficult to meet the standard on a redevelopment project than on a new project. So.
Yeah, that's what it is. Correct. Thank you, John.
All right. So I would set it up as 2 sections, Eileen. One for new projects and one for redevelopment projects that qualify to meet the standard.
John, do you just remember, was there some reason why this is all in, never mind. Okay, I'll look at that. You want to go down to something else?
Well, we'll just make our way through it. There's, I'm looking for anything significant that you had there. Anybody, I'm already on 610, 611, 612. There's no changes. And then we're final reports within 2 years of completion, 613. That's to make it consistent.
Yeah.
614B, you added in some words about the illicit discharge and connection.
Yes, and actually somebody in DPW pointed out to me that they really look very similar, which they do. To the MS4, to the MS4, or directly or indirectly into a water course. Well, no, it's two different things, I suppose.
Well, I wrote that one too, and I thought it was different, but whatever. Okay.
I think before you leave that page, the bullet
Yep.
just above it, the last bullet of section A covers the pollution caused by smaller projects. All persons engaged in land disturbing activity greater than 500 square feet who have caused substantial erosion, are also applicable to the enforcement.
Yes, it does. Good point, Bill. So we may not need to put it in twice, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
It's in there.
I agree.
Okay, sounds good, Bill. Anyone else in the commission? Anyone have, I mean, we're kind of at, believe it or not, at the end of the review of this document. Should we be looking towards creating regulations for this at all? John or Eileen, do you have comments on that?
We certainly could. I think that if we include the reference to the phosphorus in here now, it gives us breathing room. It's actually a very, very detailed bylaw compared to a lot of other towns. They tend to go into more detail in the regulations, and a lot of them are a lot more bare bones.
Right. Any further comments by anyone on this? If there's nothing, John or Aileen, what's the next step?
Well, we're going to get some feedback from the planning board and the Board of Health and the Stormwater Committee. And then, John, remind me, what's the next step after that? We have to go somewhere else.
Right. So, I mean, we should keep this public hearing open. We should keep this hearing open right up until town meeting. And we'll just keep it as an agenda item in case anybody else wants to talk about it from the public. But we'll also have to go to the bylaw review committee, possibly Ways and Means, and the Board of Selectmen as well.
Should we go to land use as well? We went, when we originally established this, we went to land use as well.
Right. Correct.
All right. So you should probably try to get on their agendas, ask them to be on their agendas over the next month.
Right.
We're on the Board of Health and Planning ones in the next week or so.
Okay. All right. Could you send out the dates when these things are so commissioners would like to attend?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All right. The only thing I would say to the commission is I got a phone call from Dr. Weiner on the Board of Health. He was concerned that he got the impression from his staff that we were making our erosion and sedimentation bylaw more strict than what's required by the EPA. I wrote him a lengthy email to explain exactly what we're doing, and I made it clear that we are being as stringent, but not more stringent, is the intent. And I haven't heard back from him yet, but you may through official channels. John, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'll send this out to the commission so they can look at what we wrote. Okay.
We're slightly more stringent.
Well, what I wrote, I wasn't responding to the Board of Health, in which case I would have gone to the commission. I was responding directly to him as an individual.
Okay.
Do you mean with a 1 inch, Bill?
Yeah, I was just gonna say with the 1 inch, we're a little more restrictive than the EPA. But it's not big, but it is a difference.
I think the Board of Health's concerns are more to do with a low-impact development.
Right. He mentions, Dr. Weiner mentioned specifically rain gardens and
Of course.
detention ponds, and they have been concerned with, particularly in residential settings, about the safety of having open water sources in those areas.
Right.
But I went out of the way, and the response I sent to him directly is to point out that that these requirements for 10,000, that we are not imposing a permit condition on disturbances less than 10,000, and only a formal permit is for 20,000 and more, which pretty much indicates commercial settings.
Yes, and also, this Gail, for rain gardens, if they're designed properly, they're not meant to hold water. I mean, they're
That's
supposed to be
right.
standing water.
Yep, they're supposed to be designed to move it along pretty quickly, move through.
Well, usually they're not functioning properly if they hold water beyond a certain number of time after a storm.
So unfortunately, the memorial school project has sort of poisoned the well on LID for a while for a lot of people in town, I think.
Right. It doesn't operate. The one across the street at Marshall Simons does operate correctly. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was really just a retrofit, but yes.
So is that to do with LIDs or to do with whoever built it?
Yeah, it's a combination. It was probably poorly designed,
Yeah.
poorly constructed,
And maintained.
and not maintained well. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So is there anyone in the audience or online here that wants to make a comment, or anyone who wants to make a comment on these proposed changes to make our erosion and sedimentation control permit, a bylaw consistent with the town's EPA MS4 permit? Okay. All right. Could I have a motion to continue this hearing until the December 10th meeting, hearing to consider changes to the sedimentation and erosion control permit?
So moved, Indra.
Second.
Second, Gail.
Don, how do you vote? Okay. Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill Boyven?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Don was muted, but he gave me the thumbs up as a yes signal, so I'll note that for the record. 700. All right, so that is continued. All right. Let's see, where are we on the agenda? We can wrap this up now. We have planning board comments. Do we want to make comments to the planning board on 300 Summit?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Subcommittee and staff reports.
Nothing.
Okay. Let's see. Upcoming meetings, December 10th, and the next one is actually January 14th of 2021.
Ooh, goodbye 2020.
Okay. Other business. I have one thing. Anyone else have anything else?
No.
All right. We were notified on Monday that the Public Lands Preservation Act was being considered as part of an amendment 23 to the amendment number 23 to the budget. And it was appropriate that we quickly, within less than a day, send a letter to our representatives, Representative Ken Gordon and Senator Cindy Friedman. So I will just read what was written. There was really no, we asked the commissioners if it's okay if I wrote on behalf of the commission. I had it reviewed by staff, and they caught a couple of things, and I'll just read it for the record so the public knows what we are doing. Dear Senator Friedman and Representative Gordon, the Public Lands Preservation Act, which is an act combating climate change by preserving open space, has been filed by Representative Ruth Balzer, and it has been filed as Amendment 23 to the budget. The Burlington Conservation Commission recognizes that in the past, you both have made this legislation a priority. The commission certainly appreciates your past support. Groups that have also expressed support for this legislation include, but not limited to, Friends of Landlocked Forests, Burlington Conservation, Mass Rivers Alliance, Essex County Greenbelt Trustees Organization, Trust for Public Land, Mass Nature Conservancy, Sierra Club, Mass Audubon, Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners, the Environmental League of Massachusetts, Appalachian Mountain Club, and the Conservation Commissions of multiple cities and towns. Now more than ever, with storm severity and climate change impacts and increased dependence on outdoor recreation, this legislation is needed to help protect open spaces, to provide buffers against floods, minimize heat island effects, help store carbon dioxide in trees and soil, and protect drinking water supplies. The the Public Lands Preservation Act, let's see, would stem the continuous loss of public parks, conservation land, watersheds, and other natural resources lands as state agencies, cities, and towns divert land to other uses, usually building projects. This legislation would add transparency to land disposition involving Article 97 of the Constitution, state constitution, and would clarify the disposition process, providing efficiency and potential cost savings for municipalities. It would ensure that the integrity of Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution is upheld. We are writing again to communicate the strong support of the Burlington Conservation Commission for the Public Lands Preservation Act. Today, we also ask if you would make your support of Amendment 23 known during the budget deliberations. It would be very timely if you could reach out to your colleagues to help ensure their support as well. Again, your support is very much appreciated. Best regards, Conservation Commission, Larry. So,
You get anything back? This is Ed, Larry. You get anything back from her, Cindy?
not from Cindy Friedman, but I did get a note from a Representative Ken Gordon, and he said he's on it. So
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but he got the letter and he's on it.
I did get a note back when I went to her personally. Good morning, Ed. Thanks for passing this along. I'll keep an eye out for the support. Any similar amendments when the Senate takes up their version of the budget.
Yeah, I think Ed, this is actually in the House of Representatives right now.
Oh, yeah, she just said, if it comes across my desk. I also reached out to Michelle Kikolo in Lexington. She's also going to be waiting on that and supporting it.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Ed.
Oh.
Okay, does anyone have any comments on the Public Lands Preservation Act? We've tried for many years to get this through the legislature. Okay, if there's nothing further, unless you would like to chit chat for an hour or two, a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Indra.
Second?
Third.
Okay, on adjournment, Dawn, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, that's unanimous. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good meeting.
Good night.